a new election in North Carolina. The Republican Party calling for this extraordinary step in the race of for the 9th congressional district after it was reported that the early voting totals in Bladen County were leaked. Officials have refused to certify the results of November's election after allegations of fraud involving absentee ballots triggered an investigation. The investigation is focused on Bladen County and the actions of Leslie McCrae Dowless, a convicted felon and veteran political operative who was hired by a consulting firm connected to the Republican candidate's campaign. Of the 684 absentee ballots that were counted in Bladen County, Dowless himself personally turned in 592 of them. Republican candidate Mark Harris currently leads the Democratic candidate Dan McCready by only 905 votes. This is an election where truly every vote matters. Let's dive into all of this now. Harry Enten is here. Harry's here with the forecast. Oh, no.
Not quite, although make the forecast easier knowing the results.
This is a mess. It's an absolute mess, and we could be looking at a do-over. Republicans say that it's because early vote totals were leaked. How big a deal is this?
I mean, first off, it's against state law, and so that is, of course, a pretty big deal when one county's doing it and everyone else is abiding by the rules and they're not. But more than that, if you talk to Dallas Woodhouse, who runs the Republican Party in the state of North Carolina, he'll tell you that that allows you to get a pretty good idea of what turnout's looking like, and you can adjust your election day turnout as well. And I'll also add that most of the stuff that we've been talking about so far has to do with absentee voting. This is about early voting, so it adds another element to it.
That's another layer on top of it. So the election has already been tainted by accusations of ballot fraud centered around Leslie McCrae Dowless. You mentioned that. CNN has obtained a signed affidavit from a North Carolina man who was working with a local campaign and says that he saw McCrae Dowless in possession of a large number of ballots. And here's what the affidavit says. It says, I question his reason for having that many ballots. He stated that he had over 800 ballots in his possession. I asked him why he had not turned them in. He stated that you don't do that until the last day because the opposition would know how many votes they had to make up. My concern was that these ballots were not going to be turned in. Ballot harvesting is illegal in North Carolina. What's a legit reason for him to have it? Is there one?
There is none. I don't understand this. As you said, ballot harvesting is illegal, which essentially means that the only people who can turn in the ballots are those who are the people who cast the votes or near relatives or a guardian of them. Someone like McCrae Dowless shouldn't have this many ballots unless he has a lot of family members in North Carolina. And to my understanding, no one has that many family members, no matter how big their family is.
We talk about election fraud, and there is no, for significant election fraud, there is no evidence of significant election fraud in this country. But the possibility that this is election fraud, and it's happening from Republicans who are always complaining about election fraud from Democrats.
I should point out there's a clear difference between the voter fraud that Republicans usually allege happen, right? That's when you come in and you say you're someone you're not. Here, there's no evidence of that at all. It doesn't seem like the voters have done anything wrong. It actually seems like voters were taken advantage of. People came to their homes, may have collected their ballots, may have not turned them in. This is not on the voters at all. This is something entirely different. And as you pointed out, usually it's Republicans saying voter fraud exists, but here it actually seems to be potentially helping a Republican candidate.
There were also ballot irregularities in the primary. Would Republicans run a new primary too?
According to state law, you would not actually have a new primary, at least as it is. There has been some movement to legislature to try and get it so that a primary may in fact be rerun, but that has not in fact been, that has